It's called the $1,000 experiment. It's also known as free money for our kids. Are you kidding me? Could this be true? What exactly is this? And who should it benefit? Hi, everyone. I'm Joey Solopek. Welcome to this week's edition of The Current Temp. And we've got some interesting things to talk about. First of all, thank you to Lexus of Memphis. We're so very glad that you're a partner of ours. And we're going to talk about free money in our kids' accounts. I'm also joined by my friend here, Mr. Bill Gerner, portfolio manager, financial advisor. And again, that shout out to Lexus of Memphis. Great product, great people. And we're so glad to have them partnering with us. All right, Bill, I'm going to run through a bunch of stuff here, and then we're going to get your professional opinion. But I want to set this up. You may have heard about this already, maybe in the news or read about it and thought, what exactly is going on? It's called the Working Family Tax Cut of 2025. Now, this was part of what was Trump's big, beautiful bill. You may have heard about that. It's basically an IRA Kickstarter for our next generation. It's a way for kids to uniquely build wealth with the help of parents and family and friends. And we're also calling it the $1,000 experiment. And we're about to break down why. All right. So here's what's going on. On July 4th of this coming year, and you may or may not remember this, but in July 4th, it's going to be the 250th anniversary of the founding of America. So what we've got happening is something that's going to impact little ones in the family, anyone under the age of 18, and you're going to see some very unique opportunities. So we're going to mark our date for July 4th, 2026, and that's the date that parents will be able to fill out an IRS form or use an online portal to set up this account. Now, some of these accounts that we're about to break down will receive gifts of $1,000 per child, okay? Not everybody, but some. And then any child under the age of 18 is going to have a way to benefit from this. And that's a lot to throw at you at once, and we're going to break this down and talk about the specifics of it, but it's going to be called popularly, the nickname is a Trump account because this is happening during the Trump administration. All right. So now that I've given you all of that information, who in the world gets what? All right, let's start to break that down. First of all, the $1,000 gift in this starter account applies to children born between, and this is the part you're going to want to see and take note of, January 1st, 2025, okay, so January of last year, and December 31st of 2028. So what you're talking about is a 4-year span of time, okay? You with me? 4-year span of time. If a child was born in that time period right there, you're going to be eligible for $1,000 to begin to get invested, all right? And of course, there are some guidelines and some rules. We're going to break those down, and then we're going to hear from my friend Bill here, all right? First of all, the funds that go into this, the starter fund and anything you add to it, must be invested in what's called low-cost, broad index funds, U.S. equity index funds, something like the S&P 500 index fund. We're going to explain that. Here's another rule. Family and friends, you can contribute on behalf of this child, this baby, up to 18, up to $5,000 per year, and it is tax deferred. So in other words, you get the benefit of that money not being taxed until it's drawn out, all right? So let's continue talking about those rules. Those funds cannot be withdrawn until the age of 18, and we're going to talk about why you wouldn't want to do that anyway. However, and we're going to get to this, I'm going to plant a seed with you and to think about. If you wanted a starter home to pay for college, start your own business at the age of 18, you'll have that opportunity. If you don't touch it, it can grow even more. So now here's the next question. What if you're under 18 but not born within that 4-year window I just showed you? Great question. This is still a great opportunity. This is something to be taken advantage of. And here's what the deal is. As I mentioned earlier, you can't right now open an IRA, which is tax deferred or get tax benefits, unless you have what's called earned income, unless you have a tax return that shows you have a job. So in other words, kids historically, up until this, have not been able to open an IRA and get those tax benefits because kids don't have jobs, don't have earned income, unless you get a paper route at 16 or whatever. So now at birth, you can take advantage of these tax benefits. And now here's the bonus, okay? Here's the bonus that's going to be on top of this, and you're going to be hearing a lot about this bonus. people, businesses, wealthy individuals have already come out to say that they are going to match contributions for their employees. So in other words, I think JP Morgan is one of them. JP Morgan has said, if Bill's an employee and Bill has a brand new baby and the government puts in $1,000, JP Morgan has said, we're going to match it with another $1,000 for free. Other individuals, some wealthy American families have said, if you come in a lower income class, if your family does not make this much money, so you're considered lower income, they're going to give extra money into that account. It's really a pretty amazing breakdown about what's being offered here. And again, this entire plan designed to help kickstart building wealth from birth. All right, now I've talked for a long time, Bill, and now I want to get your opinion. Here's the first one. This is a general overview opinion. As we begin to break it down, what are your general thoughts on just this plan, this idea?
I think it's a great plan, and really for young people, they will learn about how to build wealth, and they will learn about the markets. And sometimes I think when kids are in school, they don't really understand that. But I think when you start when you're just born the first year, and as they see it grow, I think it would be a powerful tool. And one thing you said, I didn't realize that like JP Morgan and companies would match that $1,000. That's kind of like a 401k matching, and they're not even employees.
Right. And if I got my information correct, those companies are going to get a tax credit for that as well. And that, I'm not positive, but if you're watching this and you have a company and you're thinking about this, I think they're going to get a tax credit. But to your point, I mean, one of the greatest ways we know to build wealth is compounding. We're going to get to that in a moment. And as I was studying this, I was kind of blown away at what a unique opportunity this is for anybody to learn, like you just said.
It's a great opportunity, and people should take advantage of it, and you need to learn how to sign up for it.
Okay, so let's get into it, because I don't want to keep you guys long, but let's answer a few of those questions. One of the rules is it has to be in an index-type fund, a U.S.-based index-type fund. So people are naturally going to ask, what's an index fund? How would you explain that?
And then, number one, if you start out with $1,000, that's not very much money to diversify. So you can buy units of the S&P 500 where you can own 500 stocks and have the diversification you need. Or you can buy the Dow Jones where there are 30 stocks. So there's opportunities on which way you want to invest. But it's a great thing. You will have diversification. You will start out with $1,000, and as we get into compounding, you'll see how that grows.
Well, one of the things I read that I really liked, and I think we ought to break it down a little bit more, is you can't take this money and put it in crypto. You can't take this money and buy a meme stock or put it in one company, because that's just too dangerous. So I want to expound on what you just said a minute. Let's say if you chose the S&P 500 as your index fund, that money is diversified amongst basically 500 companies, more or less. And so, like you said, you're getting diversification. Talk about that for a minute, the importance of being diversified versus putting it in one stock.
You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You do want that diversification, because a company, you're in the market, stocks go up and down. So if you own one stock and it goes down 50%, then that is not good for starting out that way. So it's risk reward. You want to take risks, but you don't want all your risks consolidated into one or two stocks.
And I think this is important to share as well. If you're thinking about doing this for a young one in your family, over time, the indexes, which mirror the market or the economy, are up roughly 75% of the time, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So if you're just basically mirroring the stock market with one of these index funds, over time, you generally should be producing positive results, okay? Does that sound like a good example?
That's great.
All right. Let's get to the next part, and it's this. What is the magic of compounded interest? Now, before I show my slides, how would you, before the graphics, let's set it up. What's the magic of compounded interest?
Compounding can supercharge your money, and you can start out with any amount. It's very important to understand that. So if you're starting out with $1,000, it doesn't seem like much money.
Or 100.
Or 100, but it makes no difference of the amount. And compounding just amplifies those returns over time, because you will compound the dividends on the companies, which they usually pay quarterly, and you will compound the results as the market goes up. So it's a powerful tool. I'd like to stand up, learn about compounding. Eighth wonder of the world, right, Joey?
That's exactly right. Okay.
I mean, it is powerful.
Let me jump into some examples, and then we're going to get Bill to talk a little bit more about this. Two examples, okay? And I'm going to break down this. This graphic's a little busy, I know that. But what I did was I charted out if you put in $2,000 a year, $2,000 a year into an account, let's say for a grandchild, a child, whatever, and you did it for 18 years. You said, I'm going to put in $2,000 a year for 18 years. And over that time period, the market did between 8 and 10%, which is a historical average over time, 8 to 10% return over 18 years. You would have put in about $36,000, right? $2,000 a year for 18 years. However, over that time, the market would have gone up because of an 8 to 10%, $96,000. So by the time that baby is 18 years old and you've put in $36,000, it will be worth $132,000. Now, let me take that one step further. Let's say that child says, you know what, I'm not going to use this money right now. I want it to keep growing. If that child then said, I'm 18, I'm working part-time, whatever, I'm going to put in $2,000 a year and did that until they're 60. $2,000 a year until they're 60. And I know these numbers can change. This is just for an example. That would then have been, over 60 years, you would have put in $120,000. $2,000 a year for 60 years. Expecting an 8 to 10% return out of an index fund, that is now worth $3.2 million when they're 60 years old. So take that and tell me what you want to say about compounded interest. Let me say this before you go.
Okay, go ahead.
The way I described this to somebody today on the phone, I was talking about this exact process. I said it's like a trampoline that jumps higher and higher the further down the road you go with time. Your gift is time. If you're a child or an infant, you've got the benefit of time for this interest to bounce and bounce higher and grow for you like a trampoline would.
Well, that's just the examples you use. You use 18 years and you use 60 years. So you have to have faith in the timing. And it just showed the power of compounding over time. If people can not worry about the up and down cycles of a stock market and have faith in that time, you can see what compounding does. It is a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time, friends, with people who want to learn about finances and how to make money. And it may not click at first, but if you can sock a little bit away, put it in something that's diversified, okay, and I'm giving very broad advice. This is not tailored advice, but let it build over time and let it compound over time. That's what Bill's talking about. You get that effect every year. And here's a quick example. If you've got $1,000 and it's up 20%, you've made $200. Okay, that's modest. It grows to $100,000 and you're up 20%, you just made $20,000. You know, let's say over time it's grown to $1 million and it's up 20%. You just made $200,000. That's kind of a quick snapshot of what it looks like to compound.
Yeah, let me tell you how it works against you. If you have a checking account at a bank, they will pay you somewhere like 0.5% on the residual money that's still in that account. If you have a credit card and you do not pay it off every month, that's around 18 to 22% you pay. So compounding can work for you or against you. The main thing you can do is make it work for you. Pay those credit cards off. Don't get caught in that trap. And put your money in the market if you can be patient and not worry about the up and down cycles. And that newborn child will be so thankful when they get 18 that they have some money to work with getting started in life.
Yeah, and let me just underscore what Bill said with this. We definitely live in a culture where we want immediate gratification, immediate results. But this system is how wealth gets built for a family, and it just takes time where you are committed to contributing to it and letting it grow in the background. All right, we're almost at the end here, and we're going to do a wrap-up. So I wanted to talk about this for a minute. One of the unique things I think that this administration is doing is really kickstarting conversations just like this one about how do we invest for our future. In other words, getting people to talk about the need to prepare for retirement, because we both know Social Security was never designed to be all you retire on. That's why 401ks got so popular, is the government said, we need you to invest. I really think what we're going to see in the next 3 to 6 months as we get closer to July 4th, more of these conversations about, wait a minute, I need to be thinking about retirement. You spend a long time in this industry. You've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of people who have walked in the door and said, I'm not ready to retire. You know, what would you say about that?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of ways people deal with money, and I'll give you a quick story here about a basketball player. He went and he rented a restaurant in L.A., and he was playing basketball in Florida, and he flew his girlfriend out there and rented the whole entire restaurant for that night. He spent $250,000 on that. And I said, why did you do that? He said, because no one in my family's ever lived past age 45. So if you don't think long term and you think you're only going to be on this earth for 45 years, then you spend the money, and then when you do get 60 years old, there's no money. You have to plan and have a plan. Look, I've been in the stock market all my life. Well, most of it. Not when I was 1 year old, but I have been in the market. And there's good times and bad times. People say, oh, the market's down, I lost all this money. No, you hadn't. You hadn't sold anything. It's just a paper loss. You have to be prepared to let time work. Time will heal your wounds. It's a great thing. And that will, like I said before, supercharge your money. You'll make a lot of money, and the compounding is wonderful. Because even though if you have a dividend stock, even though the market's down, that dividend comes in every quarter, and you're compounding that dividend. And when the market goes up, you compound that. It's just a powerful, powerful tool that people don't really comprehend, I think.
Yeah, and when we talk about stocks with people quite often, and listen, there's nothing embarrassing about not understanding it all. I would say that most Americans don't understand it, which is why I think this is so critical that we're having these conversations. Most people seem to have the mindset that, oh, I don't really understand investing, but I think I need to pick that one hot stock. I need to find that one hot stock and put all my money in it, and then when it goes up, I'm going to make a ton of money. Yeah. That's not the way to do it. That's gambling.
That's right. And there's another thing. When you do build up some wealth and you do have 100,000 or more, I'll say this. I don't think the indexes are a place to be. They can't do tax harvesting. They can't make the money that you make with an active portfolio. So people with a lot of money should guard against that. But when you're young and starting out with a small amount of money, it's the right place to be.
Yeah, and let's build on that for just a moment, because I think you're making a really important point here. And what Bill was saying is, after that account has grown over time and it has grown to something more significant, let's just pick $100,000 as this point. 20,000 is significant, but let's go to 100. There are arguments about having what's called active management, where you have an individual picking those companies and getting you diversified based on how old you are, what your temperament is, how much you like risk or don't like risk. There are arguments to be made to transition from an index type account into something that's more active. You agree?
I agree with that. And I think, and I'm not really trying to throw stones at financial planners, but they can only put you in indexes. They've never set up a portfolio. They've never picked stocks. And there's people with a lot of money that do not need to be in that. They need to be in a plan with the correct asset allocation, active management, where they can increase that wealth and compound it.
Yeah, let me say this too. This is a great spot to make a reminder to everybody. Bill and I are both financial advisors. Every person is unique. Every person has a unique need. And so that's critical as you're kind of walking this road, that you're dealing with somebody who finds out who you are, how old you are, what your fears are about the market, how you fear about risk versus reward, because it's not one size fits all. It's definitely got to be different for every single person. And the end result is this: whoever is helping you with your funds should be putting your needs first and making sure that they are being as safe as possible for what you want to achieve. I think that's a critical part of being a fiduciary, or making sure you're taking care of the individual and not leading them astray.
Yeah, and I think for the people that own gold, that's fine. Gold and silver won't go up forever, but you got to remember, gold and silver don't pay a dividend. So when that drops, and it will, you will not have the benefit. And plus, if you don't take possession of the gold, then you have to safe keep it somewhere.
Right.
And that costs you money.
Physically, yeah.
So I think, and I just love compounding. And we have people that need income, where we get high dividend portfolios where we can compound that and pay out part of that money to them as needed.
Yeah, listen, as we're having this conversation in real time, I want to also suggest this. If you've got questions, find a professional nearby or somebody you trust and ask them about these things, about what their thoughts are on gold versus silver, and about what exactly is compounding interest. Find someone to talk to about that, And there are people who will answer those questions for free. You don't have to just hire somebody. You can find those answers. I want to encourage that. Let's wrap up with this, Bill. Here's my last question for you. As a financial advisor, someone who has dealt with major Fortune 500 companies, you have managed billions in assets before, but now the focus is really individuals. What are some of the problems you see that people are running into or maybe have dealt with when they walk in the door?
I think there are huge problems, one huge problem anyway. And I think people that have 401k plans, if they have the ability to pull that money out, all of it, and they set up I had a friend, he started a business. He pulled all his money out of his 401k plan. He had 2 daughters get married, and the business didn't work, and he paid all that money out, and now all he has is Social Security and having a hard time to live on
It's
it.
all gone.
And I don't think everyone is qualified to handle large sums of money. And I think that's the downfall of 401k plans. And then you see somebody that you like, or this planner or that planner. I'm a portfolio manager, as you are, Joey, and we're used to setting up portfolios and managing money the correct way. So I see the problem is when businesses got to define benefit plans, and what that is, they define the benefit. So if you work there 1 year, you get 2%. You work there 30 years, you get 60% of your salary. And that would come every month. But the government got out of that, and the businesses did. They said, we want you in 401k plans. And I think that's hard on people because I don't think everyone's equipped to handle that.
Right. No, at 100%. And really, what we're finding right now, you may have read this, is we are about to go through the biggest transition of wealth in, American history, where the generation that is older now is about to pass down a lot of money to their heirs. And I don't think people are prepared to know how to handle that. You're definitely going to need advice somewhere.
I really believe this, and maybe other people don't, but I think the government should take a portion of the Social Security money and put it in the stock market, 10%. And I think Reagan recommended that because as you compound and grow that, you can't cover the deficit being in money markets on the Social Security. They need to be more aggressive, and not a lot, but just a little. And that would help fund that and make that a lot better program. And, churches, what's the 5 talents? The guy went out of town and he left it, and one man increased it, doubled it, and one made a little money and one buried it. So you got to invest it, and you got to understand the risk reward. And I think the government and a lot of indices, companies or whatever, they just don't do it right.
Well, and I'll close with this before we wrap up for you. We're pretty open about how we feel and what we believe in. We think we're all supposed to be good stewards of what God has gifted us, whatever that is. Whatever you have in your possession that's a gift from God, you're supposed to take care of, and we believe that's a big part of this as well.
Yeah, and you have to have an objective. Like you said, there's not a better investment in the world than the stock market. If you compound at 10% on average since 1926, I don't care if you go in venture capital or private equity or whatever you go into, that is the best investment. But you have to understand it doesn't go straight up. It will go down at times.
Right.
And what happens to individuals when it goes down, they panic and sell at the bottom, and that's when we try to buy.
Yeah.
If we have any cash, we try to buy when it's down. You buy low, sell high. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and so we'll wrap it up with this. It is a pretty commonly known thing that mom and pop investors, people that try to do it themselves at home, the data shows that they're called retail investors, sell at the worst time when things have dropped, and they usually buy at the worst time when things are very high. And so it's good to get some knowledge, whether you're going to be self-taught, whether you're going to do some research, or whether you're going to talk to a professional. We just want to make sure that you're taken care of and that you're making good decisions for you and your family. All right. Real quick recap. Some things to remember. All right. This goes into effect July 4th, 2026. So it's coming up, and you're going to hear a lot about it over the next few months. If you want to take advantage of this, I believe there's going to be a box on your next IRS form when you're doing your tax returns called Form 4547. And if you have trouble remembering it, this is actually the number was created because that was Trump's 2 years of presidency. He's number 45 and 47, and it's happening under his administration. And I went and checked out the website. It's already up. Now, you can't sign up yet, but you will be able to. It's active. It's just not taking applications yet. TrumpAccounts.gov. Any closing thoughts?
I just want to reiterate that you got to be patient with the timing and have faith in it. If you can do that, and even if you put up $1,000, the government and get them started, they will be so happy when they're 18 or older. They will have a lump sum of money to do something with. And it's a great idea, and I think people should take advantage of it.
All right, friends, you're going to be hearing a whole lot about this over the next 3 to 6 months. And again, to add to the recap, children born in that 4-year span, January 1 of 2025 through December 31st of 2028, going to get $1,000 free dollars, possibly more. Anyone under the age of 18 can take advantage of tax-deferred investments because you couldn't do that previously unless you had earned income. So some real opportunities here that are going to be very interesting as we go into the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I do have one more thing to say. And I think compounding, if I haven't explained it well, and I apologize, but it's kind of like when you're a kid and you have a snowball and you roll it down a hill, it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, that's a great example.
And I think if you can think about compounding like that, I think you'll be happy. And I think people shouldn't be scared of the stock market. You need to just give it time.
Yeah, it could start out as a marble. By the time it gets to the bottom of that hill, it might be as big as a house. So listen, friends, we want to make sure that you've got your thoughts and questions being addressed. Email us. We'd love to hear from you. thecurrenttemp@gmail.com. You can find us on my Facebook page. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can also subscribe on Spotify. And I'm almost started this at the beginning. We are looking at applications right now for anyone who may be interested in becoming a supporter or sponsor of the show as well. If you want to partner with us, we are looking at different applications. And so if you've got one you'd like to submit, we're open to talking to you. So we'd love to have a conversation if that's something you'd like to talk about. All right.
Maybe we should call a donut shop and see if they want to.
Any food-based, I'm completely open for. We've got some favorites right here.
You know, when I did the radio with Joey, I used to say, Joey, you're the greatest, and you are.
Man, stop. Listen, Bill used to say, turn up your radio and listen good. That's what we want you to do. And we want to make sure that you guys are getting educated, and that's what this is for. Quick reminder, there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to investing. Everybody is unique, and you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, it fits you and your family perfectly. All right, friends, that's it for this week's The Current Temp. We hope that helped, and we will see you next week.